Coming in number 10 today, we have Lea Michele. It's fair to say that Lea Michele is a celebrity whose reputation precedes her. The star who shot to fame after landing the lead role as Rachel Berry in Glee back in 2009, and since she's been the center of several scandals. Recently, during her appearance on The Tonight Show, after the show aired, she would spark some fresh backlash after she could be seen moving Sadie Sink out of the way so she could take center stage. When Lea was announced on the show, she would walk onto the stage and she would briefly touch Sadie's arm before reaching across to shake Jimmy's hand. Even though Trake was closer to her than Jimmy, she stepped forward to shake his hand and awkwardly stood in front of Sadie until Sadie decided to move aside to give Lea her spot. In addition, soon after the introductions, Jimmy told Sadie to take a seat on the right of him and Lea to the left, and Sadie had to take a step back to accommodate Lea before crossing over to the stage so she could get to her designated spot. The situation did not go unnoticed, as soon fans would start to praise Sadie for being humble by the way she reacted to Lea's disrespectful and immature attitude. Number 9, Emma Roberts. Back in 2017, podcast host Jane Hunt and Robert Ackerman sparked a viral rumor that actor Lea Michele can't read or write. Since the podcast, fans have been pointing out moments that prove the actress couldn't read, and up until now it's pretty much just been a huge speculation. However, during an episode of Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, Emma Roberts decided to play coy about whether her friend Lea Michele could read, and by doing so, she would reveal that the rumors are actually true. During the interview, Andy Cohen would say to Emma that the biggest misconception people have about Lea Michele is that she can't read. Instead of shutting down the rumor, Emma decided to skirt around the question with a joke and said, "Well, we've not been in a book club together." While Michele did try to confirm in a tweet back in 2018 that she can actually read, Emma's joke would definitely prove otherwise. Even though Emma did try to keep things sweet and try to offer some sweet support to her friend by shouting out her Broadway show, the part about Lea not being able to read definitely didn't go unnoticed. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? So don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Coming in number 8, we have Whoopi Goldberg. 2022 was filled with controversy for Whoopi Goldberg as she continues to rebuild her image in the spotlight. It appears that the crew at the ABC daytime favorite show has appeared to be lending a helping hand towards the star. On January 4th, joined by her former talk show members on an episode on The View, she took the spot of the moderator on the show, meaning she was in charge of teeing up links and starting debates and conversations. But Whoopi's prominence on the show didn't stop there, as an insider would soon reveal that the crowd was also encouraged to cheer her on the loudest. As the crowd was warmed up by comedian Regina DeSico, specifically, she told everyone to give a loud applause to Whoopi and then continue clapping for the other host. It seemed like the crew wanted Whoopi to get a standing ovation to make her feel like she was the star of the show. She also carried herself as if she had all the authority on the show, and she even was seen talking over the other co-hosts and interrupting them, which isn't exactly a great way to start her comeback. But if someone has to encourage the crowd to cheer for you the loudest, it's a pretty clear sign that your time in the industry is almost up. Number 7, Chris Harrison. Chris Harrison's time away from the Bachelor franchise has really started to take a toll on him. More than a year after he defended a contestant's previous racist behavior in an infamous extra interview, the TV personality has finally addressed all the controversy in a debut episode of the most dramatic podcast ever. In the episode, he would say, "I think I need time to figure out what I want to say. How I felt that mistake doesn't reflect who I am or what I stand for." While his extra comment marked the beginning of his Bachelor downfall, Chris has been left feeling heartbroken, gutted, and embarrassed, and he stated that the backlash took a toll in more than one way. In the podcast, Chris would also state that his comments made him feel sick and worry about his children, loved ones, and family, and since he decided to step down from his role on The Bachelor, he hasn't been able to watch the show, but he has been keeping an eye on the ratings and believes the show is declining in ratings because he's no longer on the show, and that hurts him a bit. Number 6, Sam Smith. Rumor has it that Adele and Sam Smith may have more in common than just their heavenly voices, as fans are speculating that they are actually the same person. During an episode of The Drew Barrymore Show, Sam would reveal the craziest rumor they've ever heard about themselves, and it was that they were actually secretly the Hello singer in drag. In the episode, Sam would say, "Everyone seems to think that I'm Adele in drag cause we've never been in the same room together. And if you slow down her voice, it sounds maybe a bit like mine. So people think we're the same person and I'm just in drag right now." While some fans in the past have made theories on social media, like one person tweeting in 2018, "Anyone notice Adele isn't at the Grammys this year? It's because Adele and Sam Smith are the same person and you never see them both in the same place at the same time." Others have even begun to mock the singer on Twitter, suggesting Sam made up the rumor, with one person tweeting, "Sam Smith says the craziest rumor they've heard about themselves is that they're secretly Adele in drag. Never heard that one before." And honestly, wherever the rumor stemmed from, someone definitely owes Adele an apology for this one.
Halfway number 5, MIA. During Madonna's halftime slot at the 2012 Super Bowl, she brought out her collaborators on the song Give Me All Your Lovin', MIA and Nicki Minaj. But the great night came to a crashing halt after MIA flipped the bird at the end of the performance, and millions of viewers at home saw. The league was so outraged by the decision that they decided to sue her for $16 million. The suit was settled between parties for an undisclosed amount. After the scandal, she claimed the finger was a quote, "display of female empowerment through being punk rock." Madonna later commented that she had no idea it even happened until much later, but she was really surprised to learn that it happened, saying quote, "I was really surprised. I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't happy about it. I understand it's punk rock and everything, but to me there was such a feeling of love and good energy and positivity, it seemed negative." In at number 4, Coldplay. It's hard not to love Coldplay, but sadly their Super Bowl halftime show was really cringy, mostly because the band was upstaged by their guests Beyonce and Bruno Mars. I assume most of you didn't even know that Beyonce's legendary Super Bowl performance in 2016 wasn't actually her show, it was Coldplay's show, she just guest starred. Considering many people don't remember anything about Coldplay's performance, it's clear that they took the back seat. During the show, Chris Martin's performance looked more like a third wheel, not someone who was actually supposed to be there. In at number 3, Fergie. In 2011, Fergie and the Black Eyed Peas hosted the Super Bowl halftime show, and they brought out special guest Slash during the performance. In between performing Black Eyed Peas songs, Fergie and Slash performed a rendition of Sweet Child of Mine. That had fans in uproar. As we know, Fergie likes to put her own spin on classic songs, but this one was not received well. It was the third song in an 8-song set list, which Rolling Stone described as the worst Super Bowl halftime show of all time. This was not the last time a rendition of a song went horribly wrong for Fergie though. A few years later, Fergie took to the NBA stage to perform the American National Anthem, and it was so bad we've really never heard from her since. In at number 2, Indiana Jones. If you were too young to remember this happened, I'm so sorry I'm gonna remind you, because it was an epic disaster. In 1995, Disney unveiled its Indiana Jones Adventure Temple of the Forbidden Eye ride, and they felt the best place to promote this new ride was at the 1995 Super Bowl halftime show. Disney came on board as the producer of the show, and it was pretty goddamn strange. The 11-minute show was somewhat of a musical theater performance. First, we see Patti LaBelle lip-syncing to a random song, then Indiana Jones and Marion Ravenwood show up via parachute and have to fight their way through a horde of ninjas for some reason. Then they grab the Vince Lombardi trophy and run away. Then the performers all sing Can You Feel the Love Tonight, which kind of felt like a strange choice. Thankfully, there was no mishaps during this performance, but we're glad something like this did not happen again. And finally, at number 1, Elvis Presto. Yes, you read that right. During the 1989 Super Bowl, there was an Elvis Presley impersonator that stole the show for all the wrong reasons, even though it was a great game. And the San Francisco 49ers edged out the Cincinnati Bengals 20-16 to win the event. All anyone could talk about the next day was Elvis Presto. For the halftime show, the NFL got a 1950s musical group led by a magician dressed as Elvis Presley to perform. This fake Elvis performed a magic trick for the crowd, which was deemed, quote, the world's largest card trick. Coca-Cola and NBC also presented the performance in 3D, and viewers could pick up a pair of 3D glasses before the event. The end result was a strange performance and a 3D show on mass scale.
On number 10, Vincent Gallo. You always have to be mindful of the things that you say. Your words have a lot of impact and can either make someone's day or ruin it. You must be especially careful with your words when you're trying to get ahead in your career, because one wrong move can set you back significantly or even ruin your career altogether. This is what happened with actor Vincent Gallo, as after one too many failed interviews, his career went down the tubes. Vincent was known to be a little outspoken at times, and he had a history of speaking without a filter, but in 2000, during an interview with a New York Post Page 6 columnist, Vincent said some things about a former co-star that landed him in some hot water and effectively ended his career. During the interview, the columnist asked Vincent about Christina Ricci, who starred alongside Vincent in the 1998 film Buffalo 66, and when the actor spoke about his co-star, he didn't have the nicest things to say. He told the interviewer, quote, "It was okay when she wasn't drunk on the set. I think she's an alcoholic. It was either that or she was on cough syrup the whole time. I don't like her. She's an ungrateful C-word." word, but it was okay. She's basically a puppet, I told her what to do and she did it, end quote. After this interview, he faced some minor backlash for making such mean comments, and his film career just wasn't the same after that. At number 9, John Lennon. The Beatles were a huge hit at the height of their fame, but members of the band also faced scandal and backlash, as every celebrity does. John Lennon had his share of controversies, but one that did quite a lot of damage to the band's career for a little while was when he said that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus. In 1966, John Lennon did an interview where he was asked all sorts of questions, like how he lives and his interests and so on, but his comments on Christianity is where things got heated. In the profile, he said, quote, "Christianity will go, it will vanish and shrink. I needn't to argue about that. I'm right and will be proved right. We're more popular than Jesus now. I don't know which will go first, rock and roll or Christianity. Jesus was alright, but his disciples were thick and ordinary. It's them twisting it that ruins it for me," end quote. Now, when this profile was first released in the UK, no one really thought anything of his comments about Christianity, but when the article was republished worldwide a few months later, things got messy when it hit the US. A radio station in Alabama got a hold of John's comments and proposed a ban on the Beatles, refusing to pay their music and smash their records. This anti-Beatles mindset began to spread further, angering more people, until eventually Lennon apologized and things died down, making for a chaotic few months. Now, before I carry on with the list, I would like to ask you guys to consider leaving a big old thumbs up on this video if you're enjoying it so far, because it really does help the channel out. At number 8, Tom Cruise. After doing an interview with Matt Lauer back in 2005, Tom Cruise had a bit of a career setback that affected him for a while. During this interview, Tom made some pretty controversial comments about mental health, psychiatry, and made some harsh criticisms about actress Brooke Shields. All of this was caused by Tom's belief in Scientology and the fact that he doesn't believe in medication or therapy. While on the Today Show, Tom and Matt were having a discussion about how the actor criticized Brooke Shields for taking antidepressants for her postpartum depression, and Tom would keep trying to shut down anything Matt would say to defend psychiatry, also going on to say, quote, "You don't know the history of psychiatry, I do," end quote. A lot of people took offense to the comments that he made on this topic, saying that it was uncalled for and that someone's mental health shouldn't be discussed, and so he lost some support from fans. Between that and his position in the Church of Scientology, he lost a lot of popularity, leading to some box office bombs that affected his career for a while afterwards. At number 7, Miles Teller. Actor Miles Teller is a very good actor, but apparently he kinda sucks when it comes to doing interviews. He was set up to have a very promising career after starring in the 2014 award-winning film Whiplash, but after a series of underwhelming interviews, his career started to decline. The first of his interview bombs came in 2014 when he spoke badly of his fellow actors, where he said, quote, "I feel like a lot of actors of my generation are not proper actors. I want to break out of that whole group of actors in their early 20s and really start to put stuff down that lets you know I take this seriously," unquote. Also in that same interview, he spoke harshly of actor John Cusack, where he said, quote, "I guess we look alike. We did some similar movies. He was a leading man that wasn't traditionally good looking, who was offbeat and quirky but confident. I get it, but I don't want his career," end quote. The more bad interviews he gave, the more people started to see Miles as arrogant, cocky, and rude, which certainly did not help his career. At number 6, John Mayer. I feel like we really don't hear much about John Mayer these days, and that could very well be due to a 2010 interview that tanked his career and made him receive a lot of hate. During an interview with Playboy magazine, John made a lot of rude, crude, and racist comments that ruined his public image. At one point during the interview, John dissed his ex-girlfriend Jennifer Aniston and also spoke in too much detail about his other ex-girlfriend Jessica Simpson, and honestly, I would rather not repeat what he said because it was really gross. On top of that, John also proceeded to say the N-word several times throughout the interview, as though it was the cherry on top of this whole mess. After facing a lot of backlash for what was said during the interview, he tweeted an apology, but his career just wasn't really the same.
Number 5, Will Smith. So it's clear that the Grammys never hurt Will's career. However, I think it's still worth mentioning that Will Smith boycotted the Grammys back in 1989 after he and his musical partner, DJ Jazzy Jeff, boycotted the Grammy Awards after learning that the presentation of the award for the new category at the time of Best Rap Performance wouldn't be televised. Smith and Jeff were nominated and ultimately won the Grammy for Parents Just Don't Understand. Smith then, in an interview with Entertainment Tonight, would say, "We don't have a problem with the Grammys as an award or the Grammys as an institution. We just had a problem with the 1989 design of the award show. We chose to boycott. We feel that it's a slap in the face." He then told the LA Times after winning, he was more than happy to accept it, before adding that he wasn't happy as he could have been, as the presentation was not televised and distracted him from the excitement of the award. Now, it's no lie that Will Smith will boycott shows that he sees problems with, and the Grammys have clearly not changed since. Number 4. Trevor Noah. During the 2022 Grammys, Trevor Noah would make a pretty controversial speech after he decided it was a good idea to address the Will Smith Oscar slap during his introduction. During the ceremony, Trevor went on to say, "We're going to be listening to some music, we're going to be dancing, we're going to be singing, we're going to be keeping people's names out of our mouths." With the Grammys and the Oscars only just being days apart from each other, it really wasn't the time or the place to make fun of such a hurtful incident, especially since no one should ever condone violence or make fun of it. Not to mention, Will also started to go through a really tough mental health crisis after the incident, and he chose to quit the Academy as a result of his actions. However, the world just keeps making such a heavy topic a joke, and that's not okay. Number 3. Justin Timberlake. Both Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake were under fire after a planned costume reveal during the Super Bowl halftime show didn't go exactly the way they thought it would, after Justin accidentally ripped Jackson's costume and revealed her chest on camera. Just weeks later, both Timberlake and Jackson were asked not to attend the Grammys unless they agreed to apologize on stage. Jackson had been part of a planned tribute to Luther Vandross, while Justin had been nominated for several awards and was also scheduled to perform. Justin ultimately went on to apologize, however, Miss Jackson declined the invitation, so as a result, Jackson ended up being cut from the tribute, while Justin went on to take home an Album of the Year and Best Vocal Pop Album. During his speech, he also decided to bring up the event again, maybe to embarrass Janet, when he apologized for offending his fans in the Academy. Number 2. Milli Vanilli. Milli Vanilli, a duo composed of Robert Pilatus and Fab Morvan, hit the music scene with their hit album Girl You Know It's True. With 3 of their songs on the album hitting the number 1 spot, they would soon be nominated for Best New Artist. However, after they took home the prize, they would soon be forced to give their award back just 9 months later, after it was revealed that they didn't actually perform any of their songs on their album and that they had actually lip-synced their way through all of their live performances. While some said the lip-syncing was known by some in the industry, others couldn't believe that the duo were faking it because they were so good at it. In fact, at first even their own record label didn't even know that the two were lip-syncing, but later uncovered the truth. The artists then felt so bad about the deception that just a week before their cover was actually blown, they suggested that the prize should be given to the actual singers on their album, John Davis, Brad Howell, and Charles Shaw. The pair then officially returned the Grammys just one day after Michael Green revoked their prize. Number 1. Kanye West. When it comes to award shows, you never know what Kanye's going to do, and due to his very controversial behavior, he would even find himself being barred from performing at the Grammys in 2022 due to his concerning online behavior. Variety would then confirm that the decision would come just a day after Kanye, legally known as Ye, was suspended from Instagram for 24 hours for his multiple posts of hate speech, bullying, and harassment. Trevor Noah, the comedian and Daily Show host, then criticized the post Kanye made about his ex-wife Kim, to which Kanye would respond by using a racial slur before deleting the post. The decision the Academy made to drop West wasn't really unexpected. However, the veteran rapper The Game, who collaborated with West on a recent single with a Pete Davidson trolling video, would say, "Time and time again they show us that they want to steal the culture and not allow you to ever be their equals." However, with Kanye spewing so much hate, it had nothing to do with culture, but more to do that they didn't want him to use their platform to spew more hate, because these events are about joy and celebrating and not hurting others.
And at number 10, Janet Jackson. Janet Jackson is easily the celebrity with the worst track record relating to the Super Bowl. In 2004, she had the honor of leading the halftime performance, but she made the biggest mistake of her life and invited Justin Timberlake to perform with her. This incident was so bad it coined the term wardrobe malfunction. While her and Timberlake were performing the song Rock Your Body, Justin reached over and ripped her shirt, exposing her bare breasts to everyone watching live. Over 540,000 complaints were filed after the incident, and CBS was even fined for allowing it to appear on TV. Following the mishap, Jackson was banned from attending the Grammys that year, and all the world could talk about was Janet Jackson, even though Timberlake completely caused the malfunction. Watching the performance back now, it's clear that the moment was staged, we're just not sure where exactly it went wrong. It was rumored that he was supposed to pull back the top part and expose just the red lace bra she was wearing underneath, but obviously he ripped off too much. Jackson's career has really never recovered following the event. And at number 9, Justin Timberlake. Justin Timberlake's career totally took off after the Super Bowl incident, and it was a minor bump in the road for his career. Thankfully, he has gotten some repercussions recently. In 2021, after the release of Framing Britney Spears, the world got to see how badly the media treated her. One portion was the fact that Timberlake accused her of cheating in his Cry Me a River music video, and spoke about their intimate life when that was not something that she wanted to do. Janet Jackson was also brought into this conversation, and people were angry he took zero accountability for hurting them both. He responded with an apology note on Instagram, but it was not accepted. In 2018, Timberlake hosted the Super Bowl himself, which is insane considering he is the reason for the malfunction. During that performance, he did a Prince cover and decided to include a huge Prince display during the performance. Prince's family did not like this, and he got tons of backlash for disrespecting Prince's wishes. In at number 8, Katy Perry. Katy Perry headlined the halftime show in 2015 and put on a bright and colorful performance, as expected. During the show, she brought out other performers like Lenny Kravitz and Missy Elliott. But after it was done, all anyone could talk about was Perry's backup dancer, who became memed as the left shark. During the performance, Perry had two giant sharks behind her dancing while she sang Teenage Dream, but the left one caught everyone's attention because the shark was off cue the whole time and looked to be falling behind. The shark even became one of the year's top Halloween costumes. After the performance, everyone wanted to know the full story behind Left Shark, so the dancer inside the costume, Brian Gaw, shared his side. He had been dancing with Perry for 5 years beforehand, and he said that he felt the performance was up to interpretation, so he decided to play a different sort of character as the goofy shark who did not know what he was doing, and clearly he played the role perfectly. And at number 7, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. In 2014, Bruno Mars ran the halftime show and decided to bring out the Red Hot Chili Peppers as one of his guests. The band and Mars performed Give It Away, and everyone loved it. However, during the performance, fans on TV realized that the bass and guitars were not plugged in, making it clear it was not actually a live performance. The band started to get tons of backlash, and people were angry that they did not play live as they claimed they would. The bassist later made a statement which revealed, quote, "When we were asked by the NFL and Bruno to play our song Give It Away at the Super Bowl, it was made clear to us that the vocals would be live, but the bass, drums, guitar would all be pre-recorded." The band's guitarist also doubled down, revealing that every band in the last 10 years has also performed to a recorded track, because there is way too much room for error with a real live performance, and they don't have time to deal with any problems. And at number 6, Maroon 5. The 2019 Super Bowl was fraught with scandal. That year, Colin Kaepernick decided to kneel for the national anthem instead of stand, and it became a political war between those who supported him and those who did not. During the season, the NFL made the controversial policy to ban the protest, which many felt was silencing Kaepernick and others that joined him. By the time the Super Bowl came around, no big star wanted to affiliate themselves with the NFL. A number of performers were asked to lead the halftime show, but all refused, until Maroon 5 and Travis Scott agreed. Even before it was announced that they agreed to do the show, thousands of people signed a Change.org petition calling on the group to drop out. One comment on the petition read, quote, "Kaepernick risked his career to take a knee for equality, and the NFL punished him for it. Until the league changes their policy and supports players' constitutional right to protest, no artist should agree to work with the NFL." Amy Schumer even tweeted for the group to reconsider. Maroon 5 responded by saying, quote, "I'm not in the right profession if I can't handle a little bit of controversy. It is what it is. We expect it. We'd like to move on from it."
Number 5, we have Chevy Chase. Hopes were definitely high when Chevy Chase was asked to host the 1988 Oscars, as the year prior he shared the stage with Goldie Hawn and Paul Hogan. And he did such an amazing job, so you would think that he would be able to host the award show by himself, but that just wasn't the case. Now, you know when a host opens a show saying, "Good evening, Hollywood phonies," you're definitely not in for a good night. And it just seems like Chevy, as the host that night, just kept dragging it on, and everyone watching was just praying it would all be over soon. Especially when he realized his jokes weren't funny anymore and they weren't getting laughs. He just turned to this gross humor, and it made us all cringe. Chevy got to the point where he was just acting completely ridiculous, like when he dropped his pants when Paul Newman took the stage to present the award for Best Actress. And when that didn't get the laughs he was hoping for, he just made some bad ad-libbing attempts, and he was seen picking his nose and sneezing into his hand, and that just wasn't funny. Number 4, Donald Duck. Now there's probably a reason when you think of Disney characters, you never think of Donald Duck, and that's probably because he completely butchered the 1958 Oscar ceremony. So Donald Duck wasn't the only one who hosted the ceremony, as there was a handful of hosts that year. But it was Donald Duck hosting abilities that definitely caused a huge amount of disappointment to come from viewers watching the show. So 1958 was a big year for the Oscars, as this was the first time the show had ever been broadcasted live. The Academy also sponsored the event, so that meant there was no commercials, meaning they had to hire multiple hosts as nobody really had the time to take a break. Being that there was already 5 other hosts, you would think they would be able to handle things on their own, but the Academy was still trying to figure out how to throw something extra in there for us, so they decided Donald Duck. Maybe it's because they felt like they owed the fictional character a spot due to him being a former Oscar winner, or maybe they were just a little ahead of their time and wanted to get edgy by featuring a host who doesn't wear pants. But honestly, they probably should have known better, and it would have gone better if Mickey hosted the event instead. Number 3, Rob Lowe. After Rob Lowe's performance, it made a lot of sense to why the Academy decided to stick to a host-free format for years, as it was an attempt to make sure other award shows didn't turn out to be a complete nightmare like the show did in 1989. When Grease producer Alan Carr was put in charge of delivering an opening number, not only would he have Snow White in it, but also Rob Lowe. And when they took the stage, Rob would go on to sing and flirt with Snow White throughout the entire performance, but it also didn't help that he was introduced as Disney's character's blind date. Later, Disney's president, Frank Wells, would call out the Academy for this poor performance, and he would tell them that he was extremely unhappy for what they did with Snow White's character. Rob also would tell the New York Times, "Look, the Academy asked me to take the role, so I was a good soldier and did it. You can't be your own manager and agent and soothsayer. You have to take risks." But maybe you shouldn't have taken that one. Number 2, Neil Patrick Harris. In 2015, Neil Patrick Harris, who is known for his roles in the hit series How I Met Your Mother or the Harold and Kumar franchise, got a chance to host the Oscars, and honestly his performance as an MC for the event received a lot of mixed reviews, as his abilities to do the job just wasn't that great. Now while the star's jokes were funny, as he is funny, he kinda pushed it a little too far as he poked fun at his own career, as the star then came out in his own underwear later on in the show to spoof Birdman and show off his songs and dance skills, with some help from Anna Kendrick. But the overall performance would have critics fuming, as they thought his opening was just bland. The only thing most people actually found enjoyable to watch weren't his jokes, but more his political speeches, as they were more entertaining to watch than his skits were. And if you prefer to hear about politics more than you want to watch a skit, you know there's a problem, because let's face it, no one likes politics. And coming in number 1 today, we have Frank Sinatra. So Frank Sinatra actually had the chance to MC the Oscars twice. The first time around, he got the chance to MC the event by himself in 1963, and he did an amazing job, so it wasn't really surprising that the Academy would ask him to come back to the show to MC again, and this time he got on the stage with Sammy Davis Jr., Bob Hope, and Shirley MacLaine. However, his second time as an Oscar host was definitely a tense one, as during this telecasted event, he and his co-host faced some major controversy when filmmaker Bert Schneider read a telegram from a Vietnam diplomat. This then prompted angry viewers to send in telegrams of their own, so mid-show, after fighting with Shirley about making his own statement, Frank would take to the stage to read a disclaimer by Bob Hope, in which he said the Academy was not responsible for the political views that were expressed on the program. But when it comes to politics, sometimes it's just best not to say anything, as people take these conversations very heavily, and it drives a lot of us nuts. Starting off our list today at number 10, we have Chris Rock. Not only did Chris Rock destroy his career in 2022 with his horrible Oscar hosting job, you think the Academy wouldn't have hired him to host the ceremony, as back in 2005 he had another pretty controversial show, as not only did he make a comment about straight black men never watching the Oscars only a month before the show, he actually tried to cover it up by stating the LGBTQ community only watches the Tonys, which would cause a handful of people to call the star out and urge the Academy to replace him as the host that year. But still, the show went on with him as the host, and to be honest, his opening monologue just wasn't even that funny, and his whole performance was just really bland and loud. And if things couldn't get any more worse, later in the night things got extremely awkward as Chris went on to make a comment about Jude Law when he said, "You want Tom Cruise, and all you get is Jude Law." The statement didn't sit well with a few people in the crowd, and when Sean Penn then took the stage to present Best Actress, he would then tell Chris Rock off and say that Jude was one of the generation's finest actors. Number 9, Anne Hathaway and James Franco. If one thing's for sure, Anne Hathaway doesn't deserve to be on this list today, but because she had to MC with James Franco and he failed at his hosting job, she unfortunately has to be on this list today. From the very beginning of the night, it looked like James just didn't want to be up on the stage and he was waiting for the whole event to be over, which was strange as you think the actor would have been a little more excited as he was also nominated for an Oscar that year, but he still didn't want to be there. So to make up for his co-star's lack of energy, Anne had to try her best to keep the show afloat. Unfortunately, tipping into her over-the-top energy caused a lot of the viewers to cringe. But I still don't know what's worse, the fact that they had zero chemistry on the stage, or the fact Anne opened up the ceremony by saying, "My gosh, you're all real." Later, James would even acknowledge how bad his presence was by telling David Letterman, "I've thought about it. I think I know why I bombed. I love her, but Anne Hathaway is so energetic. I think the Tasmanian devil would look stoned standing next to Anne Hathaway." Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to that channel. Number 8, Seth MacFarlane. To be honest, I don't think any of us could really understand why the Academy would ask Seth MacFarlane to host the Oscars in the first place, as his brand of humor in his Family Guy show is very controversial. So they should have known that his performance was going to get on a lot of people's nerves. Now, Seth definitely proved that he could sing when he performed in his opening number, but he chose to do it in such a controversial way as he decided to write a very misogynistic set that revolved around seeing actresses who have stripped down on scene for their roles, as Seth went on to sing about how he has seen certain actors' chest. He then went on to mention everyone from Meryl Streep and Naomi Watts, and you could see their faces all fall in the heartbreaking slow moment. He also enlisted an entire choir of men to help him humiliate the woman he named in his song, and when the cameras finally panned over to Charlize Theron, her unimpressed face would say it all. Not to mention, he also went on to make jokes about how women were getting themselves sick just so they could stay in shape for the award show, as well as cracking jokes about the infamous Rihanna and Chris Brown altercation, which just wasn't cool. Number 7, Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen's first Oscar hosting gig in 2007 was an utter mess, as it was nothing like the lovable performance she put on in 2014. Maybe her first time around was just missing all the selfies and pizza. However, with saying that, it isn't really Ellen's fault her performance as a host didn't do so well, as prior to hosting the Oscars, she previously hosted 3 Emmy Awards, and she did such a great job doing so. So when the Oscar ratings were down, the Academy brought in Ellen so she could bring in a different demographic, but by doing so it seems like it was just a little too forced, as she just kept rambling on and her points just fell very flat throughout the night. Even her overall style didn't seem to fit in with the Oscars, and there was a point where she even mentioned the Oscars was going green and that she was going to recycle some of her old jokes, and she actually took that to heart. It seemed like she made the night a little too much about herself and didn't really focus on the films and the actors that were up for consideration that night. Number 6, David Letterman. It's no lie that David Letterman was at his peak in 1995, but just a couple years earlier he was actually passed over for the Tonight Show gig that was vacated at the time by Johnny Carson. So David instead went to sign his own deal for his own show on CBS, and he actually was beating Jay Leno's late night ratings by a decent margin, so he became the perfect choice to lead the Oscars, well, after both Whoopi Goldberg and Billy Crystal declined to host the event first. Now, David has always had this very dry sense of humor, and it didn't exactly translate well when he was hosting the Oscars, with his opening monologue being extremely boring. To listening to Uma Thurman and Oprah's opening skit was also just very odd and out of place to watch. David just couldn't get his style of work to fit in the right way like Johnny Carson did before him. It also didn't help that he also told the audience at one point to pay attention. At the end, David took all the heat he was receiving in stride, and he even went on to make fun of himself when he returned to his regular job by saying the Oscars even asked him to perform again. Crazy. Number 5, James Corden. On January 2nd, 2023, James Corden appeared on The Drew Barrymore Show, and James would be asked why he was leaving the CBS talk show after what would be 8 years on air. James would then recall a story from 2 summers ago when he was shooting his Amazon Prime video series Mammals. In an interaction with his son Max, who was now 10 at the time, it made him realize that he wanted to spend more summers with his son because he only had 6 more left. While James said he didn't want to cancel the show, he would then blame the situation on his son. However, the timing of him deciding to leave his show just seems more like a career move and reputation thing rather than a reason to spend more time with his son and family, because since entering into the spotlight, James has been a part of several controversies, such as back in October, the comedian's reputation took a huge hit after Keith McNally banned James from his restaurant in New York City and labeled him as a tying cretin of a man who was the most abusive customer he has ever seen after James was caught yelling at a server who got his wife's egg yolk omelet wrong. Number 4, Chelsea Handler. While Chelsea didn't seem to end her career this year on a talk show, she did decide it was a good idea to mock several huge controversial topics from last year during her monologue at the 2023 Critics' Choice Awards. While the star went on to reference things like the Don't Worry Darling press tour, the Roe vs. Wade Supreme Court overturning. When announcing the cast of The Bear and that they were at the ceremony, Chelsea would then joke about the drama surrounding James Corden from a New York restaurant and how he showed us working in the restaurant industry is miserable. Chelsea then went on to mention that the controversial celebrity diet culture is just insane, and while Chelsea was trying to find a way to have a great time and make everyone feel comfortable, welcomed, and feel like they belonged and to be at the show, she definitely took things a little too far, and all she did was put herself into a little bit of a hole that's going to be difficult to climb out of to save her reputation and career. And not to mention, just a couple of days before, she would make an appearance on The Tonight Show where she would confess that she didn't realize that the sun and the moon weren't the same thing until she was 40. Yeah, let that one sink in. Number 3, Eddie Murphy. The original script for Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home originally had a large role written specifically for Eddie Murphy, who at the time was a box office star coming off the heels of a successful film, Beverly Hills Cops. And additionally, Eddie was interested in appearing in the movie as he was a big Star Trek fan. He even met with the producer, Harvey Benner, and director, Leonard Nimoy, to discuss the part, which he was ultimately decided to not take. When he turned down the role, he originally said it was because he thought making the movie Golden Child would be a better fit for his career, but then recently on his appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live, he would offer up another explanation when he said, yeah, you know which one it is. It's the one where they go to San Francisco and they get the whales. I was going to be in that one. I met with them. They met when they got to San Francisco, and I said no. I want to go beam up and be on the ship, so I didn't do it. This definitely has some die-hard Star Trek fans screaming as they would have done anything to play this part in the film, and Eddie just turned it down because he wouldn't be beamed up into the ship. Number 2, Prince Harry. On January 8th, Prince Harry made his very first TV appearance since his highly anticipated memoir Spare was leaked. In a pre-recorded interview with the British anchor Tom Bradby, Harry would address some of the most explosive claims in his book that included his confession to taking substances and his fractured relationship with his family. While the star said he was grateful to have the chance to tell his story in his memory and said he'd still be part of the royal family, he wouldn't have had the opportunity to share this story. Many fans of the royal family have stated that Prince Harry definitely should have kept this book hidden in the closet with his dirty laundry, as he and Meghan have been slammed by newspaper columns and the media for a slew of lies that have caused them to mock the royal family as they try to move on and claim to live their own lives. Which has left us all to wonder when this is all just going to stop. Family feuds happen and it's normal. What's not normal is that you bring your family drama to the light and try to claim they wronged you without bringing any key facts to your story. Like, how do we know it's true at this point? And coming in number 1 today, we have Piers Morgan. Seems like Piers Morgan doesn't know how to stay out of the hot seat, as recently recently he would find himself surrounded by controversy once again, as this time he chose to go against the Queen of Pop after Madonna posted a video announcing her next tour. Morgan on his Talk TV show then said that Madonna, who is 64 years old, is a hot mess, and he even went out of his way to express that she should be put out of the pasture. He also took the opportunity to criticize the fact that she still tries to be a foxy kitten even though she's over 60. After his show, he then decided to bring his rant to Twitter, where he said he thinks Madonna has become the biggest cringe-making fiasco in the entertainment world. Fans definitely weren't happy with Morgan's words, and many just continue to call him out on his insensitive, misogynistic, and even labeled him as a cruel person for his words. Starting off our list at number 10 today, we have Harry Styles. Currently, Harry Styles is receiving backlash over comments he made during his Album of the Year speech at the Grammys on Sunday. What should have been a big night for Harry after he performed his #1 single, As It Was, and won his first Grammy Award, would soon be forgotten after he made some pretty serious remarks during his acceptance speech. After he won Album of the Year, reacting to Harry's win, he said, "I've been so inspired by every artist in this category with me at a lot of different times in my life. I think on nights like tonight, it's so important to remember that there's no nights like tonight. It's so important to remember that there's no such thing as best in music. This is really, really kind. I'm so grateful that this doesn't happen to people like me very often. This is so nice. Thank you." While fans were quick to congratulate Harry, others decided to point out that there were issues with Harry claiming that this doesn't happen to people like him very often, because for years, white men like Harry have always been given preferential treatment at the award shows like the Grammys, and this year he was up against artists who have been historically shut out of those awards for years. Number 9, Chris Brown. Chris Brown isn't a happy camper after finding out that he lost out on Best R&B Album of the Year to pianist Robert Glasper at the 65th Grammy Awards on Sunday. Voicing his anger over his loss, Chris would head over to his Instagram to fire shots at Robert in a series of stories posted to Chris's account. In one post, Chris would say, "Y'all playing, who the F is this?" alongside a picture of Glasper with several crying laughing emojis. And he didn't stop bashing Robert there, as he then went on to say, "Who the F is Robert Glasper? I'ma keep kicking y'all ass. Respectfully." Robert, who has written and produced albums for hitmakers including Kendrick Lamar and Mac Miller, has received 12 nods across 8 categories throughout his entire musical career. Chris wrapping up his roasting session against Glasper would prove that he's just a sore loser when he said, "I gotta get my skills up, I'ma start playing the harmonica." The internet would then start to call out Chris Brown, and one person on the internet even pointed out Chris Brown having no idea who Robert Glasper is and proceeding to come for him perfectly explains why his music hasn't grown or matured in the last 15 years. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Coming in number 8 we have Quavo and Offset. It's now been reported that Quavo and Offset allegedly got into a fight backstage at the Grammys just before Quavo took to the stage to play tribute to Takeoff. TMZ would then report that sources have confirmed that the two rappers even had to be pulled apart. Apparently, in the beginning, the Grammy producers reportedly asked Offset to play tribute, but Quavo stopped that from happening. Sources then added it wasn't Offset who started the fight on Sunday. Quavo then ultimately took the stage alone to perform his song Without You during the show's Memoriam segment. The song arrived last month, and it is about the late rapper who fatally lost his life on November 1st at the age of 28 in Houston. Prior to Takeoff's passing, the rapper released a collaborative album with Quavo. While rumors at this time were circulating that the Migos had broken up, it's unclear at the time if the group was just simply taking a hiatus. Takeoff would then give more of an uncertain response by saying, "Only time will tell, we always will be family now, that ain't gonna change." However, if one thing's clear, he would have definitely been disappointed in Quavo if he knew he shut out Offset from remembering his legacy as well. Number 7, Nicki Minaj and Latto. Back in October, first round of voting for the Grammys would be announced, and with the awards in process, process, it started to stir up some major controversy in the hip-hop world and beyond. A feud between Nicki Minaj and Latto broke out into the open after Nicki said she felt like the Recording Academy was showing a bias towards Latto in a way their work was being categorized. As the Twitter war between the two started to heat up, Nicki would even call the newcomer an entitled Karen, and Latto would return the fire by saying Nicki was a 40-year-old bully acting in a way unbecoming of her age and stature. She then referred to Nicki as my idol turned rival, and then the conversation quickly turned nuclear when the rapper said, "Super freaky grandma is married and related to an effing R. You ain't gonna bully me, B, my idol turned rival. Now you hating." While Nicki went to delete the tweets, Latto has kept them up, and it highlights that you can ruin your career before the Grammys even get started. It also shows that women need to stop going after other women coming up from under them. Number 6. The Weeknd. When voting began for the 2023 Grammy Awards, the ballot would reveal that The Weeknd has still continued to withhold his music from the awards consideration. While the artist appeared across the ballot numerous times due to his guestwork, his respective solo album would be nowhere to be found. The Weeknd first began his boycott of the Grammys in 2021 after not receiving any nominations for his massive, successful After Hours or its singles. He then went on to say, "Because of the secret committees, I will no longer allow my label to submit my music to the Grammys." Even after the Recording Academy changed some of its rules, he maintained that he would not be submitting his work. However, despite his boycott, The Weeknd did win the 2022 Grammy Award for the Best Melodic Rap Performance for his contributions to Kanye West Hurricane.
At number 5, Alex Pettyfer. Actor Alex Pettyfer was riding a pretty good wave of success after starring in I Am Number 4 and Magic Mike, but behind the scenes he was ruffling feathers in Hollywood after he was described as, quote, surly, arrogant, and disrespectful by The Hollywood Reporter. This entertainment news source exposed what Alex was really like after someone who worked with him on set came forward to share their horror stories with the actor. At one point, Alex's career took a pretty big hit, but things became worse after Alex did an interview with V-Man magazine that really set his career back. During this interview, he called out the entirety of Hollywood where he said, quote, LA is growing on me a little bit, but it's still a hole. I think it's this insidious pool where nearly everyone lives in fear. Geographically, it's fantastic, but socially, it's disgusting. I wish they'd run all the C words out, end quote. After these harsh words and the fact that he's a nightmare to work with, Alex's career just wasn't the same. He wasn't welcomed back to reprise his role in the Magic Mike sequel, and since then, he hasn't really been a part of any major projects in the industry. At number 4, Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf has been having a pretty rough time in Hollywood lately. A few months ago, he was facing backlash after his ex-girlfriend, FKA Twigs, issued a lawsuit against the actor for physically harming her, but before that, Shia had also faced backlash for his unruly behavior both on and off set. What really did him in at one point was an interview he did back in 2008 where he blasted Steven Spielberg after working on Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. This movie itself got mixed reviews at the time of its release, but Shia criticized the film's director, and that's when the hate began for the actor. He told the Los Angeles Times, quote, I think the audience is pretty intelligent. I think they know when you've made crap, and I think if you don't acknowledge it, then why do they trust you the next time you're promoting a movie, end quote. He also went on to say, quote, I'll probably get a call, but Spielberg needs to hear this. I love him. I love Steven. I have a relationship with Steven that supersedes our business work, and believe me, I talk to him often enough to know that I'm not out of line. And I would never disrespect the man. I think he's a genius. I think he's given me my whole life. He's done so much great work that there's no need for him to feel vulnerable about one film. But when you drop the ball, you drop the ball, end quote. Shia ripped on the director later on in 2016 as well, but at that point, the damage was already done. Looks like you can't criticize one of Hollywood's greatest directors and come out unscathed. At number 3, Wilmer Valderrama. Back in 2006, That 70s Show actor Wilmer Valderrama was a guest on Howard Stern's show, and he said some things that he surely regretted saying because after this interview, his career took a pretty big hit. While on the show, the actor shared some information about his private life that frankly, nobody asked for and was very inappropriate. The actor exposed a lot of details about the people that he slept with, going on to reveal that he had slept with Mandy Moore, and even described the experience that no one really needed to know about. He also went on to rate his relationship with actress Jennifer Love Hewitt, and again, Nobody needed that information. Wilmer just really exposed a lot of personal information about himself, but faced scrutiny because of how the people he talked about were impacted. A lot of people pointed out how the comments he made were uncalled for, uncomfortable, and inappropriate. It took the actor years to issue an apology for what he said during that interview, but by that time, the damage to his career was already done, and he never quite bounced back. At number 2, Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen was riding a pretty good wave back when he was a star of 2.5 Men, but after his horrible interview on 2020, his career was destroyed and he never fully recovered. After having a hugely successful career, making millions of dollars per season on 2.5 Men, actor Charlie Sheen started to have a downward spiral. Everything sort of came crashing down for him after the interview where he ranted about the 2.5 Men creator, Chuck Lorre. This interview was all over the place, with Charlie behaving frantically, going on tangents, and even calling Chuck Lorre, quote, a turd and a clown. This interview was all over the news because it was chaotic, Charlie was put on blast, and his career just came to a screeching halt. Not only that, but as a result of the comments Charlie made during the interview, he was fired from 2.5 Men, and that was a pretty big deal since this is how he was pulling in so much money. The actor pretty much hit rock bottom after that and never really made his return. And finally, at number 1, Megan Fox. Megan Fox is only now starting to make her way back to Hollywood after she was essentially blacklisted from the industry after she faced backlash for speaking badly about Michael Bay in an interview. Megan criticized the Transformers director during a 2009 interview with Wonderland magazine when she was asked about what it was like to work with Michael Bay. In response to the question, Megan told the source, quote, he's a nightmare to work with, but when you get him away from set, he's not in director mode. I kinda really enjoy his personality because he's so awkward, so hopelessly awkward. He has no social skills at all, and it's endearing to watch him. He's vulnerable and fragile in real life, then on set he's a tyrant. Shia and I almost die when we make Transformers movies. He has you do some really insane things that insurance would never let you do, end quote. Because of what she said, Michael Bay fired her from future Transformers films and made Hollywood turn against her by telling them that Megan was a nightmare to work with. She had a hard time making it in Hollywood until recently when she came out to reveal the truth about how she was being treated in the industry. She's on her way back to Hollywood's good graces, but for a while there, her career was ruined.